the Jason Fladlin 1-minute mini critique. And we could get a couple in before we start here. So we're going to start with Deborah's. Do one or two or three of these, and then we're going to get into today's lesson. So what she's done here is actually smart. She's at least put something out there, even though it's not done, and sent it to me to check it out. And basically she says this is the title of the course, below are the bullets where they can learn stuff. So how to use your ideas and knowledge to help others while increasing your profits and reaching your target audience. If we were talking about this as an actual headline, it definitely needs to be more unique. And we're going to be breaking more into that today, so I'm not going to belabor it too much here, but let's look at some of the bullet points based on what we talked about in the previous session, which is this one: effortlessly create information products using what you already know, the secret 3-step process to creating a limitless supply of products. This is not a bad bullet point. It's okay, Deb. It's the one thing I would recommend is, what's the benefit, though, of effortlessly creating information products? And what's the benefit of having a limitless supply of products? And the answer to that would be more money, more passive income. The fact is that you can do all kinds of stuff with products where you can have affiliates generate the traffic for you, et cetera, right? So we always want to go a little bit deeper. And so just having information products and having a whole bunch of them doesn't necessarily mean that's a good thing on its own. We want to take it a little bit deeper with the even more powerful benefit. Here's another one. Learn how to find your entourage of ready buyers. No, it's not hours of finding and testing keywords. Okay, I would consider doing something like this. The keyword-free approach to getting targeted traffic with money in hand, ready to purchase your freshly created information products, or something along those lines. Because again, it's one thing to have an entourage of ready buyers without even using keywords, but specifically, what's that going to do for us, and how are we going to benefit from that? So I always try to go a level deeper. It's so hard to. That's why you always look at bullet points and say, how can I go a little bit deeper with this one than what I ever had before? So I'll do one more here, and then we'll move on to the next critique. Even top marketers don't know this little secret of how to sync your business to your passion. Okay, this one needs to be more unique as well, because a lot of people talk about syncing your business together with your passion. You know, do what you love and the money will follow, that kind of stuff. All right, the idea here is, how can you make the same claim but do so in a unique fashion that nobody else is doing? So you could say something like we talked about the other week. The 7-word phrase that will make all the difference when you try to link together your passion and actually building a business. Then in parentheses, I would say something like, even top marketers don't know this, ... They become rich, but they also become miserable while doing so, ... right? Something along those lines. So thank you for sharing that, Deb. I hope that was helpful to you. I'm going to do one more, and then we're going to start. And so I'm going to see if I can get Tahir appeared to be next. It's so hard to copy and paste stuff on the chat box here. Oh, thank you, Deborah. I appreciate that. So I'll do one more quick one, and then we're going to get on to today. Complete website with guaranteed unique content for the cost of production. I must be mad. What the hell does this mean? To hear the cost of production. Okay, if it's a specific cost, I would just, if the cost is really incredible, I would put the cost right there in the headline. If the cost was like less than, if you can link the cost to something that they normally purchase, like you see in copy all the time, like you can get your hands on this for less than the slice of a pizza, right? Or a full pizza maybe. Or you can get this in less than the price of lunch. It's always good, you know, this could be yours for less than the cost of a movie, et cetera, right? So that's a really good technique for a complete website with guaranteed unique content built for you for less than the cost of 3 mocha lattes from Starbucks, ... right? So that would be the type of headline that I would work with. Okay. Should you love this fact? So I'm going to go scan through some of these. So what you're talking about, what exactly will you get when you purchase a site off me today? Okay, frankly, I think you could get rid of most of this copy up here and say, you know, hi, blank here, right? So hi, to here, that sounds funny. Hi, you know, to here, and I got a crazy offer, so let me just get right down to it. I'm willing to show you exactly how you can get dash for a still the following, ... And then a turnkey ready-to-go website, this one, all this and more, right? And then you can say, check out the stats for this website, blah, 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 and you talk about this, and then I would explain more of the details, where I would say to them, you know, here's why I'm doing this, here's why you can get this, here's why it's a good deal, and so on and so forth. Frankly, I'm not sure why you're doing it where you're making them click one place and then having them click over to another one. Maybe there's some specific reason for that, but that's kind of confusing to me. But beyond that, that would be really cool. So I didn't really get into your offer or this auction thing. It appears to me that you're actually auctioning off the website itself and flipping it. Yeah, if that's the case, then I really wouldn't recommend you sell it in that fashion with an auction, but that's a whole different story. I'm just talking about regular copy. We really don't have a chance to get any deeper than that. With that said, we are ready to begin this session, which I believe is session 4. So welcome to the Copy E-Class session 4, Headlines and Leads. Here's what we're going to cover on today's session. In this session, you're going to discover how to write those killer headlines, how to hook someone from headline to lead to buy button, the 5+5+5 technique, and a whole bunch more. We're going to try to go about 2 hours today. We'll see if we can get it all in by then. Before we go any further, though, let's look at some headlines that I wrote, and we're going to analyze, or what I like to call doing a post-mortem. We're going to dissect these and autopsy these headlines and see what the thinking was behind them and what the thought process and the techniques used before we break down anything further. And if you wish to, you can follow along because these are actual real-life sales letters on the internet right now that are out there. So here's the first one. This was for a product that we had published under our company called WP Secure Pro. It was all about securing WordPress blogs. And here's the headline that I wrote for it. These 7 vulnerable weak points leave your WordPress blogs naked as a blue jay to hackers, crackers, and digital terrorists who take down tens of thousands of blogs every day just for the fun of it. So I want some participation here. What are some stuff about this headline that immediately jumps out at you, or techniques that you notice, or things that I'm doing for this headline to try to get the maximum amount of people interested in reading on and eventually buying my product? Go ahead and type in what you think is going on. So Paula says, you know, I'm hitting on fear, right? And I'm going after their biggest fear. And actually, I'm dimensionalizing the fear, right? I don't just say your WordPress can get hacked. I say hacked, cracked, digital terrorism, tens of thousands of blogs a day just for the fun of it, right? Okay, there's another very important technique I'm doing in this headline here that I haven't seen anybody mention yet. And by the way, if you want to talk about power words, using the word terrorist is definitely a loaded word. But what are some of the other things that I'm talking about here? So we've hit fear, right? And we've even dimensionalized fear. We've gotten specific. So this is a very unique headline, right? This is very unique. This is unique for a lot of different reasons. What's another reason this is unique? Besides the fact that I'm promising 7 specific things. That alone can make it very unique. But in addition to that, what else is unique? There's one specific thing that's unique to this headline. Yeah, yes, exactly. Exactly. Sybil says it. Naked as a blue jay, right? How often do you read headlines that say naked as a blue jay in them? Just the word choice alone is unique, which is very deliberate on my part. Naked as a blue jay. And by the way, naked is another power word. It gets attention on its own. Naked and terrorism. When you throw us naked, when you throw it naked together with terrorism and fear, and you promise specific information. That's the final thing. Okay? The final thing that nobody specifically touched upon here is I am promising a reward for reading on. In this case, I am telling you, I'm basically creating what's called an open loop here, which I'm saying, hey, I'm going to share with you 7 vulnerable weak points. That's probably going on in your blog right now. So this is like a very hard to resist headline. It would be very hard pressed for our target audience seeing this headline to resist wanting to know more information about it, right? These 7 vulnerable weak points leave your WordPress blogs naked as a blue jay to hackers, crackers, and digital terrorists who take down tens of thousands of blogs every day just for the fun of it. Now let me tell you the final point with this headline, another little technique that I've done. Okay? Another technique that I've done here is I've put it into action. And this is something that a lot of people have trouble with until they practice it. But there's showing and then there's telling. Most people just tell you something, right? So I could tell you, for example, that this biker came into town and he was really tough. And I just told you that, right? Big deal. But I could show you through specific words that this biker dude was really tough. I could say this biker pulled into town, and immediately when anybody looked him in the eye, they looked away, and they felt a fear tingle down their spine, and their hair stood on end. I never said the biker was scary or tough, right? But I showed it in action, that based on the actions that I was talking about, you drew the conclusion that this biker was strong and tough or all kinds of stuff, right? So what did I do here? I didn't just tell you that you were vulnerable, but I showed it in action. And how did I show it? What specifically did I do to show it? I showed it in action by saying the word, take down tens of thousands of blogs every day just for the fun of it. By the way, it's very unique to describe it like that, right? But that's putting it in action. I'm putting it in action. I'm not just saying you're vulnerable. I'm telling you there's people out there who do this just for the fun of it. And that just compounds the point that I'm making by not just telling you but also showing you, putting it in action, okay? So these are some of the techniques that were involved and created in this headline. And David says, is this something, a headline you write and tweak and spend a whole bunch of time on to get it exactly how you want it? And the answer is no. Never spend more than 5 minutes on a headline, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. Let's move on. Okay, so this is a different headline for a WP member champ, and it says new WordPress plugin allows you to set up a fully functional membership site in less than 2 minutes. This is a completely different style of headline than the last one. But what are some of the reasons why this is a very powerful headline? It's got a huge promise, right? You want a membership site? I'm going to show you how to set up a fully functional one in less than 2 minutes. Fast. Okay, this claim is pretty unique, especially at the time it was written, which was about 2 years ago. At the time, it was the only one who could really do this fast. Nobody else could. So when you have a very powerful features claim for a piece of software, that's all you need to say. I got a new WordPress plugin that's going to allow you to set up a fully functional membership site in less than 2 minutes. Yep, that's all you need to say. So in this case, the pithiness, the simplicity of it is very effective, okay? Because I'll tell you, one of the downsides of a headline like this previous one here is I lose people because by glancing at that headline, it's not a very attractive headline, right? There's a lot of words in here. There's like 20 or 30 words in this headline. So I sacrifice. It's a sacrifice I have to make. I'm going to repel a couple people, but I'm able to build a better picture for the people that aren't repelled by this long headline. This one doesn't repel anybody. It invites the reader to read because it's so short and succinct. Now, ideally, you make everything as succinct as possible. But in some cases, you don't have that luxury. In this case, we did because we truly had a unique and competitive advantage over every other piece of software at the time. It's not just enough, though, to have that competitive advantage. You have to put it out there. And so in our case, our uniqueness is the fact is we're immediately selling the fact of our competition does not have this. Nobody else has this. We have this. Read on to see if I can prove it to you. So these type of headlines, when you make these big, bold promises, they're almost like a dare to the reader. You're like, I'm challenging you to read on because I've made this big claim, and you want to read on to see if I can prove it. Now, that's a very important point because a lot of people will make a big claim in a headline, and then they do nothing to go on to prove it, correct? In fact, they switch gears. Right? They start talking about other stuff. So what do you think I supposedly do when I get into the lead? This is the headline. How do you think I follow this up with the lead, the opening? What do you think I do? In this particular instance, I have a video going, and I say, okay, Jason Fladlin here. Let me show you how I can set up a membership site in like 2 minutes. Click, 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 done. Oh, I can do this, and I can do this, and I can do this. This is cool for you. You should buy this right now. I immediately prove and pay off the headline. Yep. So let's move on. Let's look at the next one. Okay, double your productivity for life. So this is the headline that I use. I can double your productivity for life in under 48 hours. In fact, I will prove it to you the following way. So what are some of the powerful points of a headline like this? There's one very specific technique. Not only have we made a big promise, and we've invited them to read on because we're going to say, I'm going to prove it to you. Okay, but we've done one other very important thing in this particular headline. We've created what's called an open loop. I will prove it to you the following way. But I don't tell you what that way is in the headline, do I? Remember, the point of the headline is to get your audience to read on, because most people will either decide to read on or leave based only on the headline alone. So what I've done is invited you to read on by creating a cliffhanger, or I prefer the term open loop, because we will eventually close that loop. But right now we put an idea in the brain, and it loops around over and over and over again in the brain. And it can't stop looping until the audience gets the resolution of what the heck is it so I can close this loop. So that's a very powerful type of headline. Here's another one. Take a marketer to lunch who did $117,036.04 in the month of June, the month his daughter was born. So what are some of the very powerful techniques being used here? Take a marketer to lunch who did $117,036.04 in the month of June, the month his daughter was born. Okay. First of all, it's very specific, which makes it believable, right? The other reason is not only is it specific, but it makes it unique. One of the things you'll see me harp on time and time and time again is uniqueness. It's got to be unique. So many times when you see me critique people's copy so far, I've always said this isn't unique. This claim anybody can make this claim. It's not unique. This is an extremely unique claim. Not just the number, but the whole fact my daughter was born that month, and in addition to that, taking me to lunch. That's an open loop. What do I mean by that? How can I sell this product to the masses and offer them to take me to lunch? Okay, so this invites the reader to want to read on and find out what I'm talking about. It has all these things. And by the way, my daughter does turn 2 this Saturday, so feel free to send me gifts. But there's a whole bunch of reasons this makes it unique. By the way, there's a very powerful benefit. The benefit is if my daughter was born this month, clearly I probably wasn't working like I normally would work, right? Because my daughter was born. So this is probably passive income, isn't it? So it appeals very subtly, but with a nice big fat benefit tied to proof. So a headline like this can be very effective. Let's look at another one. Okay. These 7 little known blunders can get your PayPal account shut down lickety-split. These 7 little known blunders can get your PayPal account shut down lickety-split. So what are some of the very powerful techniques that I've been using, that I would use in a headline like this? First of all, fear, again, right? Hitting on fear. Lickety-split. Yeah, how often do you see a word like the words lickety-split used in a headline? The promise of information. I'm inviting you to read on so you can find out what this promise of information is. What are these 7 things that get you shut down, right? So all of these things. So that's, we got an open loop going on there. All these things and more are very powerful. These 7 little known blunders can get your PayPal account shut down lickety-split. And remind me when we go through the lead here, I want to come back and actually show you this full ad. It's very instructive. Okay? But here's some of the commonalities. Instant gratification is a thing I put in my headlines a lot. So what you saw before was set up a membership site in 2 minutes or less, right? Unique claims. Unique is important. Notice I say unique, unique, unique. 3 different techniques specifically related to uniqueness. One is unique claims. If you do nothing other than add something that nobody else can say besides you to a claim, that makes it unique. So let's just do an exercise. I'm sure everybody on this call has heard the phrase, make money while you sleep, right? That's a pretty overused term, make money while you sleep. How can we make that one phrase unique? What are some of the techniques that we could take that phrase and make it 100% unique? How about this? Make money while you sleep, even if you're sleeping in a cardboard box. Make money while you try to sleep but can't because you're an insomniac, right? Make money while you nap. We're not sleeping now, we're napping, right? Make money while you daydream. Make money while you daydream in a daybed in your mother's basement. Make money in the time it takes you to unfold a bed from a couch. One of those hide-a-beds. Make money while sleeping on a hide-a-bed. Okay? Make money while watching your children sleep. Okay? Make money with one eye open. Make money while you're on Ambien and can't keep your eyes open. Et cetera, et cetera. Make money while you sleepwalk. That's a good one. I like that one. Okay? So all we got to do is throw some modifiers in there, right? The more specific, the better. Okay? Make money while you snore. Okay, everybody's seen make money while you sleep. How many people have seen make money while you snore? Huh? It's the same thing. We are just saying it in a unique fashion. So unique claims are powerful, even if they're just modifiers on existing claims. Unique words, though, those are also very powerful. So I always try to work in some goofy word. Sometimes I can do it, sometimes I can't. But words like lickety-split and words like blue jay or naked as a bluebird or whatever, all that kind of goofy stuff. Digital terrorism, funny words like that. I intentionally try to use words that people don't normally use in headlines. How do you suppose I do this? What's my tool that allows me to do this? Yeah, thesaurus.com. It's a very nice tool. Okay, so that's one of the ways that I do it. And the other way is I just, whenever I hear a nice colloquialism, I file it away and say, maybe one day I can use that. But if we go here and look up the word sleep, for example, what are some of the words that we can find? Now the challenge is we can't go too much into words where nobody knows what they mean, but we can use these, like lethargy, right? Lethargic. How many people use the word lethargic in their headlines? Right? So how about this? Make money while you slip into a lethargic slumber. right? All kinds of stuff like that. So in some instances, when I have my headline written, I just pop over here and throw a few words in the thesaurus, and then sometimes I'll get it even farther into it. I'll click on lethargy, right, and I'll say, okay, what's some different stuff here? So I like stupor. That's a great word. Hardly anybody uses that word in the headline. Stupor, or slumber. We can get in it even further, Catch a wink. Make money while catching a wink. Make money while catnapping. Make 40 bucks when you catch 40 winks. Okay? How being in a drunken stupor helped me to blank. And headline and product titles are absolutely not the same thing. A headline is done nothing more than to get people's attention and to get them to read on or stay on your sales page. So in more cases than not, 99.9% of the cases, your headline is not the same as your product name. But unique words, right? Open loops, like we were talking about. Prove it to you the following way. V7 blank or whatever. Now let me step off for a second. In the past, you would typically see headlines like, the 7 little-known secrets to unlimited traffic. The 7 little-known secrets to unlimited traffic. So typically people would put that number 7 because it was supposedly a magical number. They would put it in a headline, but they would almost always relate it to a benefit. Here's what I've found. Over the years, people don't want 7 different ways to generate traffic, right? They want one way that works really well. They don't want 262 different ways to find their soulmate if they're single men, right? They want one way. Why do you need 672 different ways to close a sale? Why can't you just use one that works, right? So that's what benefits I have found, overloading with benefits, saying X number of ways to do blank, these days typically is not the best way to do it. However, think of the flip side. Notice how I only use that technique on problems. Think of the difference. So benefits is one singular thing. I typically try to wrap it in one singular thing. Problems, however, are a whole different story. 7 problems, 7 threats, 7 blunders. See the difference? That really compounds the issue. So 7 is a magic number when tied to a problem in a headline. Otherwise, I don't recommend that you use it as like X number of ways to do blank, because people don't want 156 different ways. They want one way that works for them. Okay, proof is always good if you can put proof in the headline. Proof is even better if you can make it believable and specific and unique. Promise of information is very powerful because most ads, frankly, don't have any value, right? What if you could put information in your ad itself, so even if people didn't buy, they still walked away with some value? That's very powerful. And if you have that in your ad, you should absolutely make the promise of revealing that information in the headline of the ad. Okay, visual uniqueness is another thing. And so visual uniqueness could be, for example, here's one. I'm using a different font than normal, than most people use, and I make the PayPal account a different color than the rest. This one doesn't have any visual uniqueness. This one has kind of a unique font, right? This one has unique fonts. This one doesn't have any visual uniqueness. So you don't have to have all of these in every single headline. These are just some of the things that I try to incorporate in my headlines. I definitely want some of them. And if my product has a nature of instant gratification, I almost always put that in the headline. If my product doesn't have the nature of instant gratification, then I stick and work some of these other ones. I attempt to always put an open loop in the headline or the subheadline. Okay? So uniqueness for sure. Every single headline has to be unique in some sort of way. Okay? In addition to that, if I have instant gratification, I almost always put that in there. If I don't, then I have to rely more on these other techniques. But a lot of cases, I like to use a promise of information as well. But these are the many techniques that I prefer to use when writing a headline. So now that we know the techniques, how do we actually write the headline? That's a great question. Let me walk you through the process that I do. So when I'm starting to write my copy, I start at the top sequentially in a sense. And it'll typically be something like this, you know. So I'll open up my notepad and I'll get ready to write the copy here. And I'm staring at this blank screen, right? So what do I do first? The first thing I do is write any headline just to get started. So this is the throwaway headline. It's done in like 30 or 60 seconds, and then I move on. So if I was writing a headline about some Pinterest traffic getting technique, right? You know, how I get traffic on Pinterest from exploiting my 2-year-old daughter, right? I may or may not use that headline. I just put it there for now. And then I go on and start writing the actual copy. Because I find, since the headline is so important, it's much easier for me to write a real headline later when I come back. Because once I can look at the rest of the letter, then I come back and I use my 5-5-5 formula, which is 5 minutes to write the headline. So afterwards I come back and I say, okay, how can I fix this headline, delete this headline, and write a brand new one, or somehow or another modify it? Okay? So in actually most cases, this is my process. I'll write a very fast headline that I probably won't use. And then after that, I'll actually start writing the bullet points. Okay? So placeholder headline, bullet points, typically related to the offer, right? Then the lead, and the rest sequentially. And probably didn't spell sequentially right, you know? And then when I'm done, I'll go back, write the actual headline. Now, in some cases, my placeholder headline is actually, I just use it. So sometimes I'll just write a really good headline on the first crack. And I'm like, great, but I don't care. The whole point is to take the pressure off. Here's the problem that most people have when they sit down to write the copy. They're staring at this dreaded blank screen, okay? They're staring at this dreaded blank screen here, and they're thinking, okay, I got to write my headline, and my headline just happens to be the most important thing of my all copy. So that's not a good strategy, is it? Start with a blank screen and put all the pressure where you make the first words you write the most important words. You know, if you were to work out, what do you do before, like, say you're going to go on, let's say you're going to go on a 5-mile run, or you're about ready to do some weight training, right? You warm up first, right? You do some stretching, you do some light jogging, maybe some jumping jacks to get loose, and then you do your stretching, and then you actually start hitting it with intensity, right? You don't start sprinting, though. You warm up. So the beautiful thing about bullet points, and then the placeholder copy is just a warm-up. So the placeholder headline, just a warm-up, right? The bullet points, those are the easiest things to get in the groove, aren't they? Because you just write a whole bunch and you throw the ones away you don't like. Then, after you're done with the bullet points, would you say we are now completely warmed up? Would that be a fair assessment? We wrote in just some generic placeholder headline. We ran through and wrote like 20, 30, 40, maybe 50 bullet points, right? Not only are we warmed up, we're raring to go, and we have momentum. So think about this. Now that we have momentum, does it make sense to stop and think on the headline and write a real headline now? It doesn't, does it? No. It makes sense to take that momentum and start writing the actual parts of the copy. So we knock those copy pieces out, and then when we're done, we're looking at everything else. We just have to put the cherry on top, which is the headline. Which, since we wrote everything else first, we have such good clarity to go back and either delete that placeholder headline completely and write a new one, and that's when we set our 5-minute timer, right? Or in some cases, you just nail it right away. I've done that sometimes. Just nail it right away, you know? and I don't have to go back and tweak it. But most of the time I'd go back and tweak it and mess around and massage it, but I got all this stuff to look through and pull from. So think about it. I got the rest of the letter done, and I just looked through the copy, and I say, okay, where am I hitting on instant gratification at? What are some of the uniqueness that I'm talking about in the copy itself, right? What are some of the things that I answer later on in the copy that I could create open loops around in the headline, et cetera, right? But yeah, again, when we're done and it's time to write the actual headline, we pull out a timer and we give ourselves only 5 minutes to write the first headline. The actual headline. So we're done with the rest of the copy. We sit down and say, it's time to write the real headline we're going to use. 5 minutes, go. Okay? Now here's the reason why we spend no more than 5 minutes writing a headline. Because then we will spend 5 more minutes writing a second headline. And we will split test the two against each other. Okay, and the third 5 minutes are where we're going to set up the split test. So we were going to give you, if you're watching this live right now, you were supposed to get the split testing software today. Our programmer broke some stupid stuff at the last minute. I'm not going to give you a piece of buggy software, and so you're going to have to wait a couple more days. If you're watching the recording, it's probably ready for you, and it's probably in the members area. So, but that's the 5-5-5 formula. You write the first headline, 5 minutes. You write the second headline in 5 more minutes, and then it takes you 5 minutes to set up the split test. And I'm talking about the actual headlines. So the placeholder headline you write in like 10 seconds when you sat down and look at the blank screen. That's just a placeholder. You write the first thing that pops into your mind. Okay? When it comes time when the rest of the copy is done, you go back and you write the real headline. You set a 5-minute timer. Then when that's done, you set the 5-minute timer again and write the second headline that you're going to test against it. And then you're done with the headlines. All right, does that make sense for everybody? Okay, cool. And here's the axiom behind writing headlines. You can have all the technique in the world, but this axiom is it's easier to make decisions right than to make the right decisions. It's easier to make decisions right than to make the right decisions. So we just make a decision on the headline, right? We write 2 of them to split test against each other, and then we find out what happens when we put it out there, and then we can make a better informed decision based on data after we put something out there. And Leanne asked, do you decide in advance if you want to use a fear-based or a big promise headline? I don't, Leanne. I basically look at the finished copy that I wrote based on some of the bullet points and some of the techniques we're going to talk about for the lead and things like that. And whatever leaps out at me, I write the headline with. Yep. And Richard, yeah, it's the same one. Correct. So here's an example. Here's some split tests we've ran. Will internet marketers ruin Pinterest was one headline. I ran against how to profit off the overblown hype of Pinterest. Okay, so these 2 headlines. Will internet marketers ruin Pinterest? First of all, look at the techniques behind there. Okay, this one is a pure curiosity play. And it's got this urgency, this interesting, it's unique in the sense that who else is writing a headline like this related to Pinterest? Everybody jumps on this Pinterest bandwagon because Pinterest is hot right now, and everybody's talking about big benefit Pinterest, right? Use Pinterest to get all this traffic. Use Pinterest to make all this sales. Use Pinterest to get all this money. And then little Jason Fladlin walks in and says, will internet marketers ruin Pinterest? Question mark. That was the headline I went with. But I wasn't sure if that was going to work, and nobody is ever sure if their headline is going to work, so I ran it against another test. How to profit off the overblown hype of Pinterest. So both of them use basically the same type of technique, right? But again, they're both very unique. Because who else is writing about the overblown hype of Pinterest? And not telling you how to profit off of Pinterest itself, but off the overblown hype of Pinterest. And then underneath both of those headlines, there was a sub-headline that said, Pinterest was the fastest growing site to 10 million unique users. Now what? Question mark. So they both have the same sub-headline and opened the loop. Quick question to you. Which one of these performed better of the 2? Will internet marketers ruin Pinterest? That's number 1. or how to profit off the overblown hype of Pinterest, that's number 2. Okay? By the way, I thought number 2 would do the best, and I was wrong. It was number 1. And in fact, if you go to the URL wppinpro.com/details, you can see which one won because it's the one that we're using now, right? Will internet marketers ruin Pinterest? It was the fastest site to 10 million unique users. That's nothing compared to this. That was the open loop I used instead. I did not think Will internet marketers ruin Pinterest would win. I thought for sure overblown hype of Pinterest would win. Now here's a quick thing. Both of these headlines did pretty good, right? So if you follow the techniques, you'll probably do pretty good no matter what you use once you get the techniques down, right? But one of them will do better than the other in almost every single instance. In this case, it's a matter of 2 to 1. In one instance, we're making almost twice as many sales per 100 visitors as the other headline. Crazy, huh? So here's another one we ran with the new version of WP Twin, the new sales copy we wrote for it. One of them was how instantly backing up and cloning your WordPress blogs with this technology can make you a fortune and give you eternal peace of mind. That was the first headline. The second headline was this: the problem with WordPress. Which one do you think polled better, number 1 or number 2? Yeah, in this particular case, everybody's guessing number 2, and number 2 is correct. And in fact, if you went to wptwin.com/details, you could see this is the one that's up right now. The problem with WordPress. ... Okay, that is very unique because everybody in internet marketing is always talking about how WordPress is the second coming and it's the greatest thing in the world, and something like, Jesus Christ used to use WordPress back in the day. All kinds of goofy stuff like that, right? Everybody loved WordPress. And I'm flat out coming out and saying the problem with WordPress. Interesting. Now, this is the most interesting thing of all. So this is the new sales letter that we created. Because we went back and we tweaked some things in WP Twin. We basically changed the pricing structure and a whole bunch of different stuff. Now, the original headline that I wrote, let me see if I can find it. So let me go to the archives. Let's pull it back. So let's get wptwin.net. And let's see. Let's compare that to like one of the old school ones here. Okay, so this was the original headline: clone a WordPress blog in under 57 seconds. Then watch it easily make you more money in less time. Okay? This was the best headline of all, by the way. The new one, the problem with WordPress, did not perform as good as this old one. Clone a WordPress blog in under 57 seconds, then watch it easily make you more money in less time. This was still the best one. Now let me explain to you the difference of why I decided to rewrite the whole sales letter and rewrite the headline and all that stuff. Okay? When we created WP Twin, guess how many cloners were on the market? And by the way, nobody called it cloning back then. Everybody called it backing up. There was a 2. There was like 2 of them. None of them were in internet marketing, right? Both of them were outside of internet marketing and aimed and sold by the bloggers. And let me see if I can still find one. I hope I put these guys out of business because this was the original inspiration for me. Okay, I don't think they're done. I think their site went down. Okay, this isn't the same one anymore. There used to be a WP cloner back in the day, and the website would go down during non-business hours, so I could never buy their cloner. But yeah, almost everything looked like this. Everything was aimed at like the blogger market, everything was institutional, and nobody had heard of it. And it was basically just, there was like 2 competitions. So when I wrote this original headline, which was, how to clone a blog in 57 seconds or less, and watch how it makes you whatever and whatever, right? Clone a WordPress blog in under 57 seconds, then watch it easily make you more money in less time. It was 100% unique. Then 1,000 people decided to try to copy us, very unsuccessfully, I might add. And so when we came back out and said, let's fight this, that's when I rewrote this copy and started off with, let's begin with a brief history lesson. So I walked people through it, right? And I rewrote the whole thing. Then the copycats came in, right? So I tell this whole story about how we developed this brand new technology that overnight made us like famous, you know? And then how all these people came in and copied us and why the competition is nowhere near as good as we are. And that's one of the reasons I'm doing that, by the way, is because we are probably one of the most, if not the most expensive cloning option on the internet. So everybody else is competing on price. We're competing on salesmanship and quality. So I had to reposition myself. Now, with all that said, the original letters still work better than both of them. The reason why we haven't reverted back to the original is because I just simply haven't had time yet to revert back to the original, because the difference is, the main difference is there's some things that we tweaked that I'd have to go back and change in the original letter here and move it over, and I just haven't gotten around to it yet. Okay? And there could be a whole different reasons. My gut, though, is based on the new results that the old letter would absolutely perform better. So I guess it's not 100% accurate for me to say that this old letter would perform better than the new one, because there's a couple of variables that could make a little bit of a difference. But I'm 99% positive the old letter is still the best one. We just haven't got a chance to put it back in the rotation yet. And yes, this is session 4. But yeah, this was just a side note for you there. But yeah, one of these worked better than the other ones, but you never know until you split test them. Okay? Here's the test we're about to run. So we're launching Video Mystic Friday to our list. And these are the two headlines I'm split testing against. So the first headline is, after countless thousands of hours of testing, here are my best video marketing secrets I've discovered. ... Here's the second headline. After countless thousands of hours of testing, here are my best video marketing secrets I've discovered. Signature. That's the only difference. Yeah, somebody asked me what font I use in my signature. That's literally me writing on a piece of paper, scanning it, and then uploading it. That's my handwritten signature. Yeah. It's not the one I actually sign stuff with, because that would be stupid, right? But it is handwritten. So I do appreciate everybody asking where that font's from. Thank you. All right, but I don't know which one will do better. We will find out, and I'll let you know the results as they come in, because we are going to be split testing this starting Friday. My inclination is that the one with the signature will do better. And there's a lot of reasons we can justify that, right? One of them is it seems more personal, right? It seems more authentic. It's more unique, because very few people put their signature right underneath the headline. That's some of the rationale for why it could do better. The other rationale, though, of why it could affect it and hurt it is because signing a headline screams of a sales copy right up front. You know, you could say that. You could make that argument. Or you could make the argument of, oh, he's signing it up front. It's just a ploy. It's just a technique, and maybe that will repel some people. Who the hell knows? I don't know. Frankly, I think both of these headlines will work pretty good, but I'll bet you just one little tiny difference like this will have a significant difference in the results. Okay? Now, here's what's interesting. Here's what's interesting. If for some reason this second headline wins, the one with the signature, and I tell everybody about it, and I say, hey, we split tested this, and we found with this one headline, this one time, that this one signature boosted results where we're generating 5 more sales per 100 visitors, right? Then next week you will see every damn headline in the Warrior Forum or any internet marketing product where people follow me with their signature below the headline, right? I think they will have missed the point if that happens. You know it'll happen, by the way. But people who do that will miss the point. You can't generalize one split test. It's always contextually specific. So you never know. Most split tests you run are only going to be valuable for that one particular test. It's very possible for me to split test this across all of my different products. And some of my products, it would work better with the signature, and some of them it would not work better with the signature. Who knows why? But most split tests are only valuable and valid for the test itself, the product itself that it's running on. Okay? And we could go further and do a split test off of a split test, because we've done this. I don't know if I can find it anymore, but we used to have a split test going for WP Pin Pro. We had a video. We used to have a video. This is the problem with doing split tests and not being able to see your different versions. But I can't find the version. But sometimes when one wins, then we split test it against a new version. But then we can go on split test things beyond just the headline, right? So sometimes we'll grab one and say, okay, maybe we want to split test the headline again, or maybe we want to split test something else. Keep the same headline, but split test something else. So one of the ones that we did before was like, let me show you this one. FB Advocate. So we ran some different split tests, if I can get to one here. So here's one of the split tests we ran. Was this headline versus... it's gone now. Okay, yeah, versus this headline, right? So we ran this headline, little known secret allows you to use Facebook as an autoresponder. No, this has nothing to do with Facebook Connect. We ran it against how to utilize the Facebook group snowball effect to get massive traffic to almost any fan page and almost any niche. Okay? We found out that this one won. How to utilize the Facebook group snowball effect to get massive traffic to almost any fan page and any niche. That was the only difference between these two pages. Everything else was the same. Notice, by the way, the add to cart instant digital access versus add to cart digital access are the same. Everything about the letter is exactly the same except for the headline, right? So once we found that this one won, this one here, then we split tested it against, if I can find it, this one. Okay? Now these are two different versions. Here's the only difference. The add to cart button. So I always start off with a headline. Then after I do a headline, then I give myself permission to test anything else that I want to test, or whatever I think is going to be important to test. So in this particular case, because I used a buy button I never used before, this one, I wanted to see if it was any good. So I tested it against this buy button. Do you think a buy button at the very bottom of a page makes any difference? I can't explain it, but a stupid button can make a significant amount of difference. Don't ask me why, because I can't tell you why. It just seems to make a significant amount of difference. And in this particular case, the yellow button won. So in this particular case, the yellow button beat the blue button here. Okay, but the first thing I always split test is the headline. After I split test one headline, I might split test the headline again, or in most cases, then I move on and test something else. Here is the thing, though. Here's the thing, though. Whatever test I do has to take 5 minutes or less. So when somebody says, how do you know what different types of headlines to split test against each other? I just say, well, the first one I write in 5 minutes or less, and I use that one. The second one I write in 5 minutes or less, and I use that one, right? That's how you do it. And then after you find out the test result, then you move on. And typically what you're going to want to do is put at least 300 unique visitors to each different version. So you can have some statistical validity, right? But beyond that, I mean, it's pretty simple. And this is how you write better headlines than most so-called world-class copywriters, because you just write 2 versions in 5 minutes apiece, put them out there and test them, and usually you'll have a better result before somebody's even finished writing their headline. Yeah, and Daniel, specifically with your thing, you should be able to take our MP3s and load them on like an SD scan disk, right? Or an MP3 player, because I do it all the time. And David asks, what do you do if both A and B are close to the same result? That's an excellent question, because that happens about 15-20% of the time, right? Where A and B will make almost no difference. Then what we try to do is test something radically different. In that particular instance, we will test something radically different. If the small test that we made didn't make much difference, then we go radical. But yeah, you have to run both side by side. And once you get WP Split Tester Pro and start using it with the training on how to use it, then you'll know exactly how to do all the split testing you need. Yep. Because it takes care of all the technical stuff for you. Here's the final point, though. You'll never really know for sure what works better, so you always test the headline at least once. If you want to see more of these headline tests, you can go to webfinity.co/headline test. This was a blog post I wrote years ago, 2009. Oh my gosh, I'm so old. I found it from an old Gary Halbert product that I had. And so these, by the way, these headlines are horribly outdated. But it just goes to show you these were all scientifically tested. And you can see here there's 19 different ones that or 20 different ones that I showed you. So I say take this test, and then I have the follow-up blog post here at Headline Answers, webfinity.co/headline answers, and then I explain the answers here. And you can see I missed 7 of them. So I was only 12 for 19. There were some people that missed less than me. One person missed only 4. But who knows, right? By the way, I'm a better copywriter than all those guys who missed less than me. So the thing is you never really know. So that's just instructive. Further reading material if you so desire. So far we've discussed the headline, right? The reason the headline is the most important thing for your copy is what? Why was that? Again, go ahead and type that in. Why is the headline like the most important part of your sales copy? Yeah, because it keeps people reading, right? It's where people make the biggest decision whether to stay or to leave, okay? So that's what the headline is. The headline is where you'll either get the most people to stay or the most people to leave. So basically it works like this. 100 visitors hit a sales page. Of those 100 visitors, probably 80 of them decide to stay or leave immediately within the first 10 or 15 seconds of being on that page, based solely on the headline. Of those that do stay, then roughly 80% of those that do stay will then decide whether to stay or leave after the next 150 words, roughly. Now here's what's interesting. You get them past the headline, which is your first biggest drop-off point. You get them past the lead, which is the first 150 words that they read, okay? You pretty much got them. Drop off after that, after those 2 initial humps, is very small in comparison. Your engagement from there on out never drops off nearly as steeply. They might get all the way down to the bottom after reading the whole thing and decide not to buy, but at least they went through the whole thing, right? So the 2 most important factors besides the final closing of the sale, we can never close the sale if A, we don't write the right headlines, and B, a headline just gets them to stay in the door, right? But they still have 1 foot out the door. The first 150 words gets them to put the other foot in and close the door behind them and lock it. Okay? Got it? Headline gets them the first foot in the door. The 150 words they hit next get them to put the second foot in the door and lock it. Now, whether they give you money after they lock the door is a whole different story, okay? So that's why the lead has its own section in this session today. And that's why the headline and lead have their own complete session in the Copy class, okay? Now, here's a technique that a lot of people want to do that I absolutely do not recommend you do. I call it the free sex technique, okay? So here's the free sex technique. Somebody writes a headline and they say, free sex. And then the opening copy is, Not really, but now that I got your attention, let me tell you about these kids starving in Africa, right? I'm sure we've all seen a headline like that before. Free beer, dot, dot, dot. No, we're not giving away free beer. We're actually giving away free Bibles. Those are the most blatant and obvious, but there's a lot of different headlines that are a little bit more subtle but do the same thing, right? So you might say, how to make money while your husband snores. And then you can say, hi, my name is John Jane, right? And 3 years ago, when I was teaching in a middle-class farm town of West Liberty, Iowa, I one day noticed a tractor going by and blah, blah, blah. And so they told you the headline, they completely switched gears. That's the same as doing the free sex, no, not really, but now that I got your attention, right? Your lead copy absolutely should expand on the headline. All right? Now here's what's funny. How can you write the lead copy to expand on the headline when you haven't written the real headline yet? That's why whatever you write for the lead copy, you base your headline on. Ah, that's how we always expand on the headline, by writing the lead first and then writing the headline last. And knowing how we're starting the letter, we can go back and tweak the headline accordingly, right? Yeah, and by the way, this isn't just limited to sales letters. You see this for email copy all the time. There'll be a headline like refund, right? Somebody will send you a headline that says refund, and it'll be like I don't even know how they open up that copy because I never read those, right? Or they'll have those ones like they'll be from support. They'll be from support. And it'll say like regarding your order status or payment notification or PayPal transaction ID X number blah blah blah, right? And you open it up and be like, wouldn't you love to see stuff like this every single day in your PayPal inbox, right? Okay? That's the same technique, the free sex technique, okay? It's promising you one thing, but when you get that thing to pull somebody in, not delivering on it. That's the greatest way to kill any chance of making money. So don't do that, okay? So with the lead, what we typically do is expand on the headline. We set another open loop in a lot of cases, or we set our first one if we haven't set one before, okay? We also want to create excitement, and we want to build what I call immediate urgency. So let's do a post-mortem on some opening leads. So remember this headline, these 7 vulnerable weak points leave your WordPress blogs naked as a blue jay to hackers, crackers, and digital terrorists who take down tens of thousands of blogs every day just for the fun of it. So let's check out this lead. Some use brute force attack software to crack your password. Some get into your WordPress database. Others know how to access your config files. The savviest do it through exposed PHP information, your install file, and even the readme.html file automatically installed with each new instance of WordPress you set up. The digital terrorists aren't your worst enemy, though. You are. Besides leveling the threat of having a no-good hacker break into your WordPress site, most WordPress users themselves configure their own WordPress blogs, so they're almost guaranteed to break at some point. So this is roughly the first 100, 150 words of copy. That's a pretty hot lead, right? There's a saying in the newspaper industry, if it bleeds, it leads. So you start, it's the reverse pyramid, right? You start with the most interesting stuff first, the most exciting stuff first, right? But compare what we just did. We've expanded on the headline, correct? We set the open loop, which is, what the hell? Digital terrorists aren't even my worst threat? How am I my own worst threat? I want to know, right? We've created this excitement. In this case, it's negative excitement, but excitement nonetheless. And we've created this sense of immediate urgency, haven't we? Because you start thinking, oh my God, people can get in through my README files? I'm not going to leave now. If I own a WordPress blog, I'm staying on the sales page and finding out what's going on here. And have I not touched on the 7 things? Brute force attack, 1. WordPress database, 2. Config files, 3. Exposed PHP information, 4. Install file, 5. README HTML file. 6. And then number 7, exploiting your own weakness. That's a big vulnerable point, yeah? Leaving your blog as naked as a blue jay. Boom. Interesting. Let's look at another one. Remember this one? And by the way, this one used to work much more effectively. When I originally sold this, it was a $1 trial, like a $1.95 trial. And so let me see if I can pull up the original copy, actually. So let's go back to the archive. But this is the opening lead. And by the way, we want to stay unique in the lead as well, right? So uniqueness isn't just reserved for headlines and bullet points. The lead copy is also important as well. So let's look at one of the old versions of the copy. So here's how it works. It says, I can double your productivity for life in under 48 hours. In fact, I will prove it to you the following way. Here's how. You could try my unusual productivity secrets for just $1.95 for 48 hours. If your productivity hasn't doubled by then, I insist you cancel and you won't be billed further. Only if you have doubled your productivity within 48 hours should you do nothing, and you will be billed the remaining one-time payment of $29.95. The final balance won't be due until 3 days after you sign up for your trial. That's a hell of a way to open up copy, isn't it? How many letters do you read that open up just like this? Maybe I'm the only one you've ever read that opens up just like that. Now, first of all, a lot of people don't even do trial offers. But second of all, those who do trial offers, they don't make it the first 10 words of their copy, right? So that's powerful in its uniqueness. It's bold. And in fact, I even go further. I say, yeah, you read that right, you know. Here's my support desk. Put a note on your calendar for 48 hours from now to go to my support desk to cancel if you haven't already doubled your productivity. See how easy I'm making it for you to cancel if I don't double your productivity 48 hours from now? My peers would call this marketing suicide. Normally they would be right. However, ... right? Yeah, so this was the old version. The new version, John said, I bought it even though there was no trial and the price went up, right? But it was worth it. Well, I appreciate that, John. But yeah, I mean, look what we're doing here. We're expanding on the headline. In this case, we're setting an open loop because I go on to explain this would normally be marketing suicide. But I can't. But it's not under the circumstance. But we create this excitement and this immediate sense of urgency, right? You're going to read on because I've created this urgency of like, why the hell would I do something like this? Am I that confident, or somebody could even say arrogant, that I could come right out just like I did? Interesting, huh? So it's a very powerful type of lead. And all it is doing the opposite. It's contrarian copy is what I like to call it. Almost nobody comes right out and tells you they're going to sell you something in their sales letter, right? They try to act like their audience doesn't know what a sales letter is. And in my case, I often do the opposite. I'm assuming you're there because you know it's an advertisement. So I'm not going to mince words. Okay? Now think about this. Tell me if you've ever seen opening copy like this. The opening copy goes, let me get straight to the point. I'm not going to write one of those fancy whiz-bang long-form sales letters that go on and on and on in order to sell you something later after I get you all excited about that. Instead, I'm going to treat you like a real human being and just tell you right up front what I have for you, and if you like it, you can buy it. Okay? Has anybody seen copy like that or some derivation of it? Okay? Now, what's the major flaw with that type of opening copy? It's an interesting attempt to do something like I'm doing, but what's the flaw with it? The flaw with it is they're telling you, not showing you, okay? If they were really going to get straight to the point, why the hell do they have to tell you they're getting straight to the point? It screams of insincerity, doesn't it? They're using the fact that they're going to get straight to the point eventually as their point of why you should trust them and listen to them. That's not very congruent. It's not very sincere. Okay? If you really want to do that, don't tell me you're going to do that. Show me you're going to do that. So I could have used the same lead and been all kind of like this, right? Like, oh, yeah, I'm not going to warm you up and do all this fancy stuff. I'm just going to do blah, 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 and then sell you something. I could have done that. Or I could have just went right out and did what I did. Buy my stuff. Try it for 48 hours. If you don't like it, put it on your calendar and refund. If not, then do nothing, and I'll bill you one more payment. Now, here's why I can open up copy just like that, and then I go right into the offer. I did the exact same thing that all these other people talk about doing, which is not beating around the bush or doing all the hype or build up or blah, 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 and getting right to the point. I did it, though. I didn't tell you I was going to do it. Does that make sense? It's kind of like when somebody says long story short. When they're saying long story short, they could have just shortened the damn story further, right? It's like when people say the fact of the matter is, when they could have said the fact is. Or they try to say irregardless, when they could just say regardless, right? Yeah. The whole point is, don't just say what you're going to do. In a lot of instances, just do it. Show it. Don't tell it. Show it. Don't tell it. Okay, if you truly are getting to the point, why did you waste 3 freaking paragraphs telling me that you're going to get straight to the point? All right? It's laziness. Let me give you the other alternative to that. And I saw this by Deborah today, and I don't want to pick on Deborah, but it's a great point. Okay? Or not Deborah, I'm sorry. The second one, to hear, right? So to hear starts off copy, and I intentionally skipped it, and I said, let's just go on. Let me see if I can find it here. Okay? See, yeah. Then let me tell you about the word honestly, because I make this mistake myself sometimes. Okay? So this is how to hear starts his lead. If you're like me, ... right? If you're like me. Okay, to hear and everybody else, never ever start copy or even use that word in any opening part of your copy. Ever. If you're like me. Okay? If you're like me is telling them. If they're like you or if you're like your audience, you have to show it in action, right? So how could to hear show it in action instead of saying, if you're like me, I'm sure you love auction sites like this due to the fact you can find some awesome deals on some great websites and you can make a bit of money, okay? He could describe himself, absolutely. That's 100% correct, Leanne. He could say, you know what I love? I love getting stuff like iPods and old automobiles for pennies on the dollars. In fact, one time I bought a website for 20 bucks that was easily worth several thousands of dollars, right? I got a great deal through auctions. That's why I know you're going to get a great deal today when you check out my auction. More on it in a second. First, let me tell you what the unique circumstances were that led me to put this up for auction when normally I would not, ... right? Listen to that lead. Now, of course, let's assume all those things were true that I just talked about in the opening. And if they're not, I'm sure he has things that are like that are true. The whole point of it is, though, is notice how I showed it in action. I did not tell you. I didn't say, if you're like me, you like a good deal. I just said, hey, we all like a good deal. Because it was the subcontext. Okay? The true thing, though, was he was showing in action that, yeah, you are like him. You do like a good deal. Okay? And I know why people like to hear write copy like that, because they haven't been instructed by me yet. But it's the old school thing, okay? I don't want to see anybody in this class now ever writing copy like this. You know, do you suffer from cramps? Are late night headaches keeping you awake? Are you unsure about how you'll ever get a full night's sleep again? Well, if you answered yes to any or all these questions, I've got really good news for you. Okay? Please don't ever write copy like that again. What's the problem with that type of copy? There's many problems with it. Yeah. First of all, it's not unique. We've all seen it 6,000 times. Well, probably more. So uniqueness is one of the reasons it's not is not why it's a horrible way to open up copy. Now, at one point in time, was it effective? It was. Somewhere between the 70s and the 80s, I think, is when it lost its effectiveness. 35 years ago, okay? The other reason it's not very effective is because it's passive, not active. Okay? It's passive. It's not in action, right? It's passive. Are you blank? Are you blank or are you blank? Question mark, right? Very passive. Instead it could be like this, okay? Think about this. If we would have done the whole WP Secure Pro, and think about, I could have started the copy like this. Do you have a WordPress blog? Are you afraid that your WordPress blog one day could be hacked and you could lose business because of it? Do you know that there is a lot more you could be doing to secure your WordPress blog today? If you answered yes to any or of all those questions, I have good news for you. There are absolutely certain steps that you can take to blah, 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 right? See how that's passive? Listen to how I put it in action. Okay? Some use brute force attack software to crack your password. Some get into your database. Others know how to access your config files. The savviest do it through exposed PHP information, your install file, even the readme.html file, automatically installed with each new instance of WordPress you set up. See the difference? Active. I put it in action, okay? So it's antiquated to do it the other way. Question, 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 answer, right? It's antiquated to do it that way. Okay? So how can we put in the action of the migraine headaches? Like, are you cramping at night? Are migraine headaches keeping you awake? Are you not sure whenever you'll catch your next sleep again? If you answer yes to any or all of these questions, then blah, 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 right? How can we put that in action? You could say, I thought the cramps were the worst part about not being able to sleep at night. That was until the migraine headaches came in. And they didn't just come in. They drove in like a freight train and squished my brain to the front of my cranium. If that wasn't bad enough, though, the cramps and the migraines I could have probably managed if it wasn't for the fact that, and then you throw in something else, right? If it wasn't for the fact that I started vomiting, because it would actually absolutely make me sick to my stomach because my migraines were coming on so strong. Now, I don't know if you've had it as bad as me or not, but it doesn't matter because nobody should have to put up with anything like this. At least that's what I thought as I put myself on a 6-month journey to discover a little-known secret from a book that's been long lost that I found in the jungles of Tibet while body surfing on a camel, ... No, I don't know, right? we set the hook, though. We open up the open loop, and we create the uniqueness and the intrigue and the excitement and the urgency. See the difference, though? That's an active voice. I took the same symptoms, and I dimensionalized them, and I assumed them myself. Instead of saying, do you do blank, okay? So see the difference? If I say, do you suffer from this, I can't say, do you suffer from headaches so specifically strong that it makes you throw up? Because guess what happens? 99% of my audience may not be able to relate to that. Or at least 80% of my audience probably, right? I can't say, do you blank, and be specific with it. Can I? It takes the sting out of it, doesn't it? I have to use these blasé generalities if I'm going to do the are you suffering from blank or do you experience blank, okay? But if I assume the role of the reader, I assume the ideal audience, and I can dimensionalize them and attribute them to one person. So you can relate to them from a third-person perspective where you can say, oh, I've never thrown up. from getting so sick from migraine headaches, but I have felt like it before, you know, or I don't throw up myself, but I get dizzy. So I can relate with having a pain that you have nothing that's in part of your control, right? Interesting. See, the old school way of copywriting was always like, don't use I in your copy, use you. Has everybody heard that? The old school training always said, you copy, not me copy, right? Yeah, don't listen to them. They're wrong. They're wrong, okay? Do you think movies do you stuff? Or do you think the movies are built around a very specific individual character and it's all about me, character, right? Ah. By assuming the role of the reader, the ideal audience member, and putting them almost into a movie through words, that's how you create the action. That's how you create an opening lead that is very powerful. One of the techniques, okay? And this is a good example of that with this double your productivity. I put it in action, but specifically I also challenge the reader and be unique with my delivery, okay? So let's look at this one. So let's actually go to this sales copy, because let me show you something that's very instructive. If we go to paymentshieldpro.com/details. If you do this right, you can write a whole sales letter with nothing really more than a headline, a lead, and a call to action. Because that's all this sales letter is. Right here. Headline, a lead, one other paragraph, and basically a call to action. And this did very well for us. Okay? These 7 little known blunders can get your PayPal account shut down lickety-split. Now here's the 7 blunders. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then the 7th one right here. Okay? Now we originally ran this in the Warrior Forum, so that's why it's very specifically written to WSOs and stuff. So think about this. I promised to reveal to you the 7 little known blunders, right? So I say 99.9% of WSOs commit this one single error. That it's no wonder it seems as if PayPal is targeting the Warrior Forum. Instead, they're just looking for this, ... So there's an open loop. There's 2, actually. Okay? An unobvious mistake. Normal, good-natured people do this with PayPal because it seems the right thing to do. Actually, they want you to do the opposite. Location, location, location. There's a location on every website where you must follow 7 rules in order to mitigate your risk of being shut down. It's simple once you know how. This quote-unquote advice is wrong. There's a common piece of advice passed around about a PayPal best practice that innocent marketers are following but shouldn't. The dumbest philosophy. You can have the best product in the world with the best customer service and a low refund rate. You still can get shut down these ways. Innocent yet deadly. 6 innocent oversights most marketers who use PayPal commit that can have some bad consequences. You're probably making at least 3 right now. Okay? And then I do one thing to really put this in action. Notice how I put this in action. Worst of all, try this. Open 10 WSOs up at random. See how many of them embed their PayPal button right in their WSO thread. You'll probably find at least 7 do, usually more. This is one of the dumbest things you can do. Yeah, it might increase conversions a bit, but it also increases your risk of your account being shut or frozen or shut down tremendously. Do you know why? If not, you need to get your hands on this freshly written report by Jason Fladlin and Wilson Matos. Introducing Payment Shield Pro. 20 pages, 7,505 words, simple and straight to the point. Instant digital delivery, no upsells or downsells, step-by-step instruction. By the way, there is upsells and downsells now. And there is at least an upsell. Step-by-step instruction to mitigate your risk, written by 2 pros with over 10,000 plus PayPal transactions. Get instant access, current price, this, right? And then we just have a little takeaway. While there's no guarantee you can minimize your risk 100%, there are best practices. Most of these best practices are neglected, ignored, or not known by Internet marketers. This guide lays down the best practices that you should put into place immediately. Get it here. Okay? And by the way, just so you know, this will be beneficial to you. Okay? The 99.9% of WSOs commit this mistake. Okay? The mistake is they sell on a page that does not have this. This is the mistake. So see how I took this and wrote that bullet point for it? The mistake is most people don't put support, terms of service, privacy noticing, earnings disclaimers, affiliates, and this information right here, right? That's how I turned that into the bullet point. Okay? An unobvious mistake. That normal, good-natured people do this with PayPal because it seems the right thing to do. Actually, they want you to do the opposite. Okay? This is, people always tell you about pulling your money out of your PayPal account right away. Never leave too much of a balance in your PayPal account, they say. Because why? Well, because if PayPal does freeze your account, then all that money is tied up because they're holding on to it. So instead, you should pull money out as quickly as you can. Never leave a big balance in there. Okay, that's stupid. If anybody tells you that, they don't know what they're talking about. Okay, what looks like more of a risk in PayPal's eyes? Somebody who's pulling money out as fast as it comes in, or somebody who keeps like 80% of their balance in their PayPal account at all times? Yeah, it's an obvious mistake. Okay, location, location, location. There is a location on every website where you must follow 7 rules in order to mitigate your risk of being shut down. It's simple once you know how. Okay, this is the same thing again, only this time we break down the 7 things. And they are in your footer, by the way. You should absolutely always have 2 ways of contacting people, or people being able to contact you for support. You absolutely must put your full business address on there, or a P.O. box, right? You have to have the appropriate terms of service, the appropriate privacy notices, and the appropriate earnings disclaimers, okay? In addition to that, it's always good to have a menu up above. So if you notice things like, notice how we have fbadvocate.com, which is the main website, and it looks like this, okay, and it has the menus up top and all this stuff, right? And then we have the actual thing that we sell from, which looks like this. That's specifically designed to show them that we're a real company. Yeah, we have advertisements, but we do have a main websites too, right? Okay. Now this advice is wrong. So this is a common piece of advice that people talk about when monitoring like your PayPal, logging into PayPal. Believe it or not, if you log into PayPal from multiple IP addresses, that's a red flag for PayPal. So you want to really limit to where you log into PayPal from to 1 or 2 devices at most, ideally. Especially if you're overseas. If you ever travel overseas and then log into a PayPal account, that's a very good chance you're going to raise a flag, okay? And then the dumbest philosophy, people always think that if I just do right, I don't have anything to worry about. It's the same argument that people used to always say of like, well, why do you care if the government watches you if you're not doing anything wrong? Do you realize why that's a logical fallacy? Well, why should you care if the police can invade your privacy if you're not doing anything wrong, if you have nothing to hide? That's what people think with PayPal. Why should you be worried about PayPal flagging you if you do nothing wrong? Because surely nobody who's ever been innocent of anything has been persecuted before, have they? Only bad stuff happens to bad people, doesn't it? Hardly. So, that's another one, okay? But you're seeing the point of this, of how we did this. In this case, with the right type of lead, that's all you need. Headline, lead, introduction of the offer, and then how to buy it. Now, with that said, here's the trick. Remember when I talked about the leads being 150 words roughly? 150 words is not necessarily the first 150 words of your sales letter or the first 150 words spoken on a video letter, right? Not everyone reads their 150 words sequentially. That's why we lay out what I call the dual readership path. Because there's 1 of 2 ways that typically people will get a lead. They'll either get the actual 150 words or they'll catch 150 words through skimming. So we have to design it to appeal to both audiences simultaneously while seeming to appeal to only one audience, one type of reader, okay? So let me break down and give you a really good example of this, of how this works. So if we go to doubleyourproductivity.com, let me show you how we do this. Let me close some of these real fast. Okay. I'm going to shrink this a little bit so we can see it easier. But okay, so this is how we set our dual readership path. So let's just read through the subheads first. I can double your productivity for life in under 48 hours. In fact, I'll prove it to you the following way. Yes, you read that right. You're about to discover the management secrets from a madman. For example, imagine this. What about this? What productivity techniques will you discover? The easiest way to become instantly more productive, the real scoop on systems, focus and state of flow, fewer choices, to-do lists are garbage, mind state tricks, profit hours in your study to action ratio, little time management tweaks, the risk involved, plus 52 seconds from now your life will change forever. Yes, Jason, I'm in. Add to cart. If we did nothing more but read the headline and subheadlines, that's like a sales letter in itself, right? Pretty good, huh? Yeah, not bad. So you have to remember your subheadlines are part of your lead in a sense of people who don't read and skim. At least their subheadlines are going to catch them, at least hopefully one of them, right? Okay, now it doesn't just stop there though, okay? Notice this bolding, marketing suicide, here's how, effortlessly. Okay, did this much money in revenue, created 4 different products, published a book. It only takes 15 minutes. Quick turnaround, big payday. Reduces the most time-consuming task to 1/4 the time. So the other way I optimize for scanners, case study, right, is through bolding and highlighting. All right. Here's another way. These are called call-outs. These secrets allowed me to create 32 front-end products in 25 days. My system for writing books in 48 hours that I publish on Amazon. 2 hours a day is all you need to build a 6-figure business. How I did over $1 million in sales from scratch in less than 38 months. Case study, a day of the life of Justin Fladlin from start to finish. Case study of my branding coding techniques spying into the inside of my mind. This will make anything you ever purchase online 200% more valuable. Exactly how to handle email once and for all. 30-day money-back guarantee. Okay? So the call-outs work just the same, right? Finally, just even though if you look at the images, there's a brain, there's money here, a brain here, an idea bulb here, a warning image here, right? And a warning images all the way down here. The 30-day money-back guarantee and the add to cart. Those are just some of the ways we get attention. The other one is bullet points, right? So bullet points on their own are easy to spot, and they stand out from the rest of the copy. In this particular case, I don't believe I used a PS, although I should have. Sometimes I go too fast and don't have a chance to remember everything. But yeah, these are all the ways that we can incorporate the dual readership path. So that way, either they're going to read the 150 words or they're going to catch 150 words through skimming. And that's going to hook them in. Okay? Yep. That's how it works. And so Brad asked this question, do you build plan your subheadlines along your bullets and then write the sales letter copy? I actually don't. Some copywriters will teach you that you should literally write your subheadlines to tell a story. Mine kind of do, if you notice they do. That's purely by coincidence. The fact is if you write the right kind of subheadlines, they will automatically flow together like that, or they should flow together like I just did when I just read the subheadlines all by themselves. Okay? So let's actually break down some of these techniques even more specifically. Bolding and highlighting. Okay? First of all, I do this in real time. What do I mean by that? I mean, I don't sit around and study and think, okay, what's the best thing to bold and what's not the best thing to bold, and spend a lot of time. When I'm reading through my copy, I do a once-over on my copy with nothing more but bolding and highlighting in mind. So I'm skimming through my own copy, and every time something jumps out at me, I kind of bold it, okay? And I keep skimming, and something else jumps out at me, so I bold it, okay? My typical rule of thumb, though, is to bold at least one thing in between every subheadline. So if you notice, there's a subline head here, and then there's at least 1 or 2 bolds here, okay? This one, I missed it, but I shouldn't have, okay? And bullet points have their own specific style of bolding I'll get to. But here's another bold right here in between this subheadline and this subheadline. Here's 1, here's 2 between these two, right? And then again, bullet points have their own techniques. But here's another one. Here's 2 between these two. Here's another one between this one and this one. And I should have worked in another one here. So I'm not perfect, okay? But that's typically what I do. I look through one or two in between each subheadline, and then whatever jumps out at me is what I bold. Don't spend a whole bunch of time on it, okay? This is what I mean, at least one per page in between the subheadlines. I try to bold stuff that creates intrigue. Some of the stuff I bold will be intentionally seemingly to unsell the product. And here's what I mean by that. I might bold something that will say, what I did with WordPress that cost me $2,672. And I might bold that, right? And people will be like, well, why the hell would you bold a mistake or an error or something that says this will only take you 16 years to master, right? Why would I bold something that would say this will only take you 16 years to master? Because that's not a benefit, is it? You bold that stuff because when people skim your letters, it grabs them. They say, what the hell? 16 years to master, and then they start reading that, just that one sentence. And it says, the way normal people do this, it would take 16 years to master. Because I know this one specific technique, it only takes 6 minutes to master. And they're like, holy crap, I got to find out what that technique is. So before you know it, you're pulling them in there, and the skimmers are even the readers, right? So that's one of the other techniques. Okay, sometimes I bulletproof. Now with bullet points, this is how I do bullet points, okay? I call it the bullet point inside the bullet point, and I think we break this down even more specifically. But just my bolds alone can be their own bullet points. So I always bold, almost every bullet point I have will have bolding in it, and it's called the bullet point inside the bullet point, okay? I believe I'm the only one that's ever developed this technique and called it that. So I created it. So here's a bullet point inside a bullet point. Reduce your most time-consuming tasks to 1/4 the time. Okay, twice as fast with twice the quality. Automatically allow you to achieve the same results as people who are masters in the 80-20 rule. Create 32 front-end products in 25 days. Automatically eliminate mental hurdles. Never leave a task unfinished again. If you do this 5 minutes from now, case study, right? Getting paid $1,000 an hour. Write without having to pause to think. See, you can see I missed this one because I go fast, right? Don't want to spend a lot of time doing this, but I try to do the bullet point inside of the bullet point. Pretty cool, huh? You can see how my bullet points inside of my bullet points are more powerful than most people's overall bullet points. That's a hot tip for you, by the way. Very hot tip. Specifically with subheads, how do we write our subheads? We typically use the same techniques as the headline, right? So intrigue, uniqueness, visual appeal, instant gratification, promise of information, open loops, etc., etc. Let me tell you a little tip that I see a lot of people messing up. I call it the one subheadline per page. So if I go to the top of my sales letter right here and I hit the page down button on my keyboard, there should never be a page that has a full block. See how every time I hit page down, there's at least one subheadline and usually one image as well. But at least one subheadline per page. You'd be very hard-pressed to find any one of my pages that didn't have a subheadline. And if not a subheadline, then a call-out. Okay? See that? You should never go more than one page down on a regular-sized monitor without having a subheadline. See that? You'll never see a full block of text. It's just a simple little trick you can do. Okay? I see copy all the time where it's like a wall of text. I mean, their copy looks like this, right? Or it might look like if they have longer paragraphs like this. So you're like, oh, that's your copy, huh? That copy's not very attractive, is it? Who's going to read that? Your skimmers are screwed. There should be a sub-headline per page down. Right there should be at least one. 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 You can absolutely go the other way too, as Jeffrey asks, and put too many subheadlines. Frankly, you should have no more than 2 subheadlines. You should have no more than 2 subheadlines in between each page in general. So yeah, you can go too far the other way. I mean, there's always exceptions. I want to see what Deborah. By the way, Deborah's become a powerhouse. I see her everywhere now. But she says, I don't know where you linked at, Deborah. When you said I wrote this after the first after the first seminar or the first copy class, right? But you can see how she's done it here with her layout, to where when you're paging down, it looks easy to read. There's a subheadline in between each page here. It looks good. Okay. So same techniques for writing your subheadlines as your main headlines. The only difference is we put more intrigue and we rely more on intrigue for our subheaders. Because you can see the difference here. So I'm talking about, yes, you read that right. That's a teaser, right? For example, That's a teaser. Imagine this, ... What about this, ... What productivity techniques will you discover? The easiest way to become more instantly productive, the real scoop on systems. So a lot of this is teaser and the promise of information. That's the only really big derivatives of subheads and main headlines. Sometimes, though, I will write a subhead that's so damn good, I end up using it as my main headline and then having to change my subheadline to something else. Callouts. Okay, so I call these things callouts. These things on the right-hand side here. Or in some cases, I'll put them on the left-hand side. I typically do this a lot with my testimonials. Okay, so let me show you what's not the best thing to do. I've done it in the past, but I try not to do it anymore. But like, here's an example of one that I don't like. So this is an old sales letter of mine, right? And if you scroll down, we have these testimonials in line. So there's like, I don't know how many testimonials there are. There are a whole bunch of them here, right? 20-some testimonials. The problem with doing it like this is these are speed bumps. The one thing almost everybody skims over is testimonials. Almost nobody reads them. And so I like to stick my testimonials on the right-hand side. Like I'm doing down here with this right, you see this? In this, etc. Like if you look at the old WP Twin sales letter, or actually let's see if we can find this in the archives. I'll show you one of the best examples of how I did this. So here's a good sales letter where I did the callouts. Now look at this thing here. So these are all testimonials, but I don't use them to put speed bumps in the copy. They just run down the right-hand side of the copy, all the way down to the bottom. And of course, they actually, they in this page, they overlay on the order form, which they don't actually in the real life, just on the Internet Archives. But you can see here. Okay, so, and this is great because Paul says if nobody ever reads testimonials, what is the point of having them take up space? Excellent question. First of all, some people will read testimonials. Most of them don't. Most of them will read headlines of testimonials, though, at least, right? So you get that. But what you don't want to do is put the speed bumps like I've done here in past sales letters where there's a bump, and I make somebody scroll down through 6 pages in order just to get through. In this case, I put them on the right-hand side. Now, do I expect anybody to read all these testimonials running down the right-hand side? I do not, okay? They're there specifically for dramatic effect. I call them the wall of testimonials. They're there because somebody glances at them and they don't read them, but they say, oh my gosh, look at all those testimonials. Okay? It's also good to put testimonials on order pages if you can. We're going to actually start doing that much more often, putting testimonials on the actual order page when you go to check out. Okay? Yeah, and obviously they have to be real. If you don't have real testimonials, don't put fake ones in. That's ridiculous. But in cases where you are putting testimonials in, it's really good to put them off to the side so they don't put a bump. There's no bump in the sales letter. So anybody who wants to read these, they can. Anybody who doesn't want to read these, they don't have to. Sometimes when I do these call-outs, I do them specifically related to the stuff that's actually in the body of the copy. So for example, this case study in the life of Jason Fladlin, right? Notice how this is here, and this is also down here in the bullet point. I walk you through a whole day from start to finish and how I get a boatload of stuff done that has made me an insane amount of money. So it's the same bullet point, just written differently. So yeah, callouts are something to use. By the way, almost nobody uses callouts. I even put the images sometimes on the right-hand side to break up the text monotony. Okay, I typically turn them into a different color of font or background than the rest of the stuff. And I try to, if I use testimonials, hit different subgroups. So I might use testimonial from men, I might use some of the testimonials from women, I might use some of the testimonials from pros, but I might use some of the testimonials from beginners, etc., right? So with bullet points, we talked about the bullet point within the bullet point. There's also specifically designing for the skimmers, there's bold, regular, and parentheses. So another reason we use parentheses, not just from the writing aspect, which I talked about before, which is that extra little punch, like this parenthesis here, you know, and the other ones that I use in my bullet points, like this parenthesis, this one, they're also formatting specifically. So some people won't even read the parentheses, they'll just read the main thing. That's fine with me. Right? Sometimes if I have a long list of bullet points that expand for the whole page, I will literally take a bullet point, like say this one right in the middle here, and turn it into a subheadline. So some of the bullet points, if I have too long of a list of bullet points, I'll pick one in the middle and actually convert it from a bullet point into a subheadline. Finally, PSs. I neglect these much more than I should, but there are specific instances. There are some people who do what I just did here. They read the headline, and then they hit Control-End on their keyboard or some shortcut and go down to the bottom, right? Oops, you know? So in their particular instance, they literally read only the headline, and then they go down to the order button to see what try to see what the price is, or maybe look at what's going on here. That's why the PS is so powerful. Because the PS will be for some people the second thing they read after the headline. This is the best example I've ever seen of anybody using a PS. Gary Halbert. So at this link here, this was actually originally an email that he sent out. Okay? But this is how he starts. So that's why it doesn't have a headline on it. But this is how it starts out. He goes, I have been working on a marketing concept for nearly half a year. This is, I believe, a concept that wouldn't work nearly as well if John Kerry were elected president of the United States. Since George Bush has been re-elected president and the results are now final, it is my belief this marketing concept will work in a spectacular way. And this could be a bonanza no matter if you're marketing online or offline or a combination of both. Let's say we only read the lead, and then we jump down to the bottom. The final PS. I feel a little guilty about writing this long email message to you. I think I should only write you brief emails informing you I posted a new letter on my website. But I can't help it. I'm so excited about this marketing concept. I want to get this message to you on the same day Bush won the presidency. I'll behave from now on, I promise. So see how the last thing he mentioned ties into the very first thing that he mentioned. And what an open loop. What the hell is the reason why this technique works better because George Bush is president as opposed to John Kerry? And doesn't it have urgency? Yes, it does, because this just happened. This is when the election actually just happened, you know? Interesting, huh? That's a great example of a PS. So for example, how can we do a PS for I can double your productivity for life in under 48 hours? In fact, I will prove it to you the following way. I could write a PS that says, isn't it crazy how I decided to prove to you that I know beyond a shadow of a doubt I can double your productivity for life in just 48 hours? Yeah, I know it's not conventional, but now that you've read the letter in its entirety, you understand why. dot, 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 okay? That could be a PS, right? It should be a PS. Because what's that going to get people to do? If they read only the headline and then they skipped right down to the bottom, and I have it formatted, the PS, to draw their eye to it, it's going to say, well, shoot, I better go back up to the top and find out the answer to that thing. So what it does is the PS actually reinforces the headline or the opening copy. Interesting, huh? Everybody thinks the PS reinforces what you just said above the PS. It doesn't. The PS reinforces what you say in the opening and or in the headline. But that's one thing that a lot of people will read even if they're skimming, is the PS. Yep, good stuff. Yeah, I always love to put that in my PS, what Brad says. When I put it in the PS, now that you've read the letter in its entirety, if I put that somewhere in the PS, that's a really good thing to say. So here's the conclusion. Follow the headline principles that I laid out for you. Now, of course, you'll never know when you're writing a headline if it's the best possible headline in the world. That's why we always test. We do the 5-5-5, 5 minutes, 5 minutes, and 5 minutes. And in addition to that, we don't just rely on only the headline. We also rely on the lead and the dual readership path. So the lead is the actual first 150 words of copy, and the dual readership path is the things that a skimmer would read, and pretty much add up to 150 words. Okay? But so if I do use a PS, David asked, I put the PS where you normally would put a PS. I put it down here right at the bottom, PS, because that's the whole thing. And some of my readers are going to read just the headline, and then they're going to go all the way to the bottom immediately, right away. So your homework is this. What was the single biggest aha moment that you got today? I want it to be one paragraph or less. I want you to write it down in the members area when we post the recording to this, okay? Or if it's already there, go ahead and write it down. And how are you going to use it? When are you going to use it by? And how are you going to make it your own? This will reinforce everything we talked about today and let you use the one biggest thing that is most applicable to you right now at this time and actually use it and benefit from it. Okay? Oh, Dave is asking, do I write the PS after I've composed the lead part? Typically what I'll do is I'll write the PS as the very, very last thing, I guess. So when I say the headline is the last thing I write, I guess it isn't. Sometimes I'll go and write the PS. Because typically I will design the order form as well. But, you know, that's what I meant. I'm glad you actually brought that up because it is kind of important. I'll stick a PS in, which, by the way, is why the PS is often not on my letters. I just simply forget. I just like, the letter's done because the headline's done. Now, back in the day, I used to use PSs like this. I used to use PSs to sell people on benefits and stuff like this, and throw in the 30-day money-back guarantee. That's back then. I wasn't that good. I wasn't as good as I am now, so I didn't know that. So if you see old letters of mine that do that, I didn't really know why the PS was the way it was. So I learned, and now you've learned. Cool. So we got like 10 minutes left. I'll hang on here because I got through this a little quicker than I thought I would. So if anybody has any questions or wants me to do a 1-minute critique, I can do this. I can do that. Okay, so Chris, I'm going to hit yours. Let me answer Jay's question, or look at Jay's question. Jay says, I once sent an answer to an attorney in response to his ridiculous demand to settle a claim for a large amount with one 2-letter word. Okay? No. Sincerely, Jay Bach. I think that's funny. He said, I think he's still opening the letter when he called me. Do you think a simple one word like hey would just get attention or something such as that? Jay, really short stuff does get attention. However, it typically sacrifices the fact that once you get the attention, it doesn't do much with the attention. So when I do use short headlines, it's typically in email. So let me show you real quick. Let me pull up some emails, and you can see in most cases, my email headlines are shorter than my peers. They're very pithy. So let me pop up some email autoresponders from J-Boy Fladlin. Let's switch over to my account, and I love doing this because I can flat out, I can compare mine to everybody else's, right? So you see most of these people's headlines are so small that they barely fit without being clipped, you know. But if you look at those compared to some of mine, if we do a search here, and it's probably not the best type of search. Let me do a search by email. Okay. So if we do a search, you can see 3 ways to do it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 words. PayPal created YouTube, kinda, 4 words. I'm kind of a big deal, 5 or 6 words. Made me look ugly, within the hour, the place to be, the deal with Google Places, copywriting, heads up. So my headlines I create for email are really short. For sales letters, I try to go longer. I really don't worry about length of headline in the sales letter, just in the email, because it does get attention. Shortness does, but unfortunately, once you get the attention, it doesn't do much with it, to answer your question. That's a good question, by the way. Okay, so let me look and do a 1-minute critique on Chris's. Think, click, and grow rich. Okay, so this is a squeeze page. The bewildering, unsophisticated writing patterns that bulldoze others into following your command. Okay, this is okay. I'm sure it's not that. I'm sure it's okay. I would first of all get rid of this. Keep it to yourself. The gurus did. It doesn't do anything, and it takes up space. The second thing I would do here, and let me give you everybody a little tip for squeeze pages. Every image that you create on a squeeze page should be clickable. And when somebody clicks that image, a little prompt should pop up that says, "Hey, opt in to get this report." Because based on our click tracking that we've done and our heat mapping that we've done in the past with ClickTail, we find people just click on images even if there's nothing to click. It's insane. So we make images clickable now. It says, hey, to opt in, put your name in the email below, right? The second thing that I would do here is, unless there's a very specific reason you're capturing the first name, get rid of the first name field completely and just capture email address, okay? Other than that, this is okay. I don't like the background color with the headline here, or the fact that this headline's bigger than this headline or even this headline. Your main headline should be the biggest font on the page. Other than that, hit on some of the bullet point techniques that I was talking about with the bolding, the bullet point inside the bullet point. This will do pretty good, I think, but frankly, a simpler letter would probably do even better. What I call the Motley Fool letter. Headline, subheadline, email only, a button. Okay. Yeah, and every time we split tested without the name, we've always converted better. Just capturing the email address alone every single time. Okay. Brad asked the lorem ipsum generator. So if you're using Chrome, like I'm using, there's all kinds of really great apps, and this is one of them. So just look up lorem ipsum generator Chrome app or something like that, Brad. App. Or Chrome extension, I think they call it, right? Yeah, it's right here in the Chrome web store, chrome.google.com. Yeah, I use that. By the way, I use that lorem ipsum all the time because I do a lot of design. It's the best plugin on the market for that, and it's free. Okay. Can you do trial offers like that today with PayPal? I believe you can, Brad. Yeah. I know we used to do it with our merchant account, but I believe in PayPal you can still do trial offers just like that. Okay. I am going to look at David Gale now. Let me see what you got here. I'll do a quick critique for you. Your internet business is ready. Build a list, send emails, and make money on autopilot. Okay, now that you know everything we talked about, Dave, you can see why I would not like this headline. Because there's nothing unique about it among some of the other things that we talked about. Okay? That's the biggest critique that I can hit on you there. And see, oftentimes the lead is stronger than the headline for a lot of people, and in your case it is. Because you talk about, I'm going to show you something right now for free without you having to buy anything for me that can be beneficial to you, right? That is more powerful than your headline is, right? So your headline is, right here on this page, I will reveal to you in just a few short minutes something that will be incredibly valuable for you for the rest of your life, ... that most gurus would charge you hundreds if not thousands of dollars to reveal. That alone would get them to read. And then you can break down and talk about what you're teaching here and then somehow or another transition that into whatever product that you're selling. okay? And I'm just looking through, I'm just going to obviously have to skim through the rest of the copy. I'll tell you one thing I absolutely would get rid of is these little breaks. These are just confusing to the eye here. This module with the underline in between it. I'd bet $1 to a dime that removing these things alone would increase conversions, these line breaks. Other than that, I like the way that you do differentiate the bonuses from everything else. And you are working this, which I think is good. Okay, I like the value stack. That's always smart. Yep. So there's a lot of good stuff going on in this copy. The headline is just absolutely the weakest part, which is like the most important thing. So that's what you're going to need to beef up and improve. When will the Fladlin font be available for download? That's good. Okay. Yeah, and if you want to know how to find clients, the report will be coming to you, and you will have to wait for it. But in the meantime, don't just wait for me to tell you. Go out there and try some different stuff. I would not recommend Craigslist necessarily, though, Daniel. But one of the easiest things that everybody should start doing, at least, is in the Warrior Forum. There's a ill-forgotten subsection of the forum called the Copywriters Forum. Okay, and the Copywriters Forum right here, you should hang out in, because it's a damn good way to build your name. Because on this forum, I'll just give you a little taste of what's going on in here right now, and I don't know what will look, but I'm assuming I can find some stuff in here. Okay. So your critique, right? So people ask all the time about critiquing. You know, they want to critique. Some people will flat out ask to hire you, right? See, here's another opportunity. Here's an opportunity. Here's somebody with an input, right? They want input, so you can build a reputation just by critiquing people's stuff for free, right? Here's another person, right? This is where you can start offering to do the split testing for a fee and things like that we talked about before, et cetera, et cetera. Critiques, basically there's critiques and there's people asking, hey, I need to find somebody to write copy. It's a gold mine. Specifically, the answer to the question of people are asking, well, how do you personalize the first name if you don't collect the first name? Well, let me show you. Okay, let's look at Jason Fladlin's emails, by the way. So let me go in here, and I don't want to show you my personal email messages because there might be people there that would not like me to show that they're in my inbox, so let's get that off the screen and back on. Now if we're looking at my Gmail autoresponders email, and we do a search for that, just look at some of my emails here that I'm going to get to in a second. Okay. Oh, what the heck? Why did that not find that? jmflad@gmail.com. Okay. So if we look at my emails, hello. That's how I open this email, right? The next email, hello. The email after that, hello. The email after that, hello. 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 Hello, hello, hello. In this case, I don't. Mary Jo sends this out. She modified this because I flat out do not say, "Hey there, friend." So the only time there's any personalization is if, for some weird reason, Mary Jo adds it, which I catch her doing every so often, and I don't know why. Every so often she'll do it, but I don't do name personalization. I don't think it makes a damn bit of difference. It used to. I don't think it does anymore. Okay. Yep. I'll tell you the reason. Well, the day I stopped doing name personalization is when I started noticing people opting into my list with names like asshole and FU and Bruce Ski and other names like that, right? So somebody opted in with the name asshole, and I sent them an email. I would say, "Hey asshole," right? Al E. Gator, I like that. Alcoholic. Yeah. The other point is, how many of your friends put your name in a subject line in personal email communication? I don't think anybody does, right? Frankly, I don't even know if you need the hello. I might just start, yeah, anaphylactic. I like that. Janny, Tor, I'll be back. You guys are funny. I'm thinking about maybe even dropping the hello, the greeting, and just going straight up into whatever. Because most of my communications with my friends don't start with hello. I need a job. That's a good one. I need a job. I need a copywriter. Peter Dragon. Okay, so this is the last copy critique I'm doing. It was the last one in line here that came in. There was others, of course. I can't do every single one. But let me just look at this one real quick. It's by Chris Boy. Yep. Okay, so Chris, finally the first practical step-by-step digital report to building a profitable email list for beginners without putting a lot of your effort to get results fast. Okay, you can tell that Chris has not read this headline out loud because it doesn't make any sense. Finally, the first practical step-by-step digital report to building a profitable email list for beginners without putting a lot of your effort to get your results fast. It doesn't make any sense. Plus, I can't say it in a single breath. Even my long headlines, if you notice, I can say them pretty much in a single breath because they flow pretty good, you know? It's not the fact that it's too long, okay, because I can make something longer than this and still be able to say it in a single breath and it flow really well. The fact is, what's this a lot of your effort to get results fast without putting a lot of your effort to get results fast? Chris, are you a foreigner? Is English your first language or your second language or your third? It's an important question. Okay, it's your second language. That's what I figured. It's not your first language. I figured it because I work with a lot of guys that English is not their first language, but they still write copy. And frankly, that's not a big deal. Okay, not a big deal at all. But the thing is, once you say it out loud, it doesn't seem to make sense. So you're going to have to fix that. So finally is not a bad word. It does get attention, although I don't use it. And the first practical step-by-step digital report, I would say, don't tell me, show me. Prove it to me. Don't just tell me it is. Somehow or another make it unique, and so you could show me that what you have is the first practical step-by-step digital report for building a profitable email list for beginners. Okay? And if you want to show somebody how to build a profitable list and they're just starting out and they can do so without putting in the normal amount of effort, see how I just said that? It flows a lot better, right? How to put in less than normal amounts of effort to build email lists in the correct way, okay? Even that's an improvement, even though it's not very unique. Frankly, though, Chris, what I like to do with email copy is I almost always write headlines along these lines, where I'll say something. If I'm writing a product about emails, I'll say, I'll point to the fact of it's not just about building the list. It's about building a certain type of list that is going to be most responsive to your email communication. So I like to put that type of stuff into a headline. You know, this is how beginners can build a massive profitable list in days instead of years, ... Because we don't focus on big numbers. We focus on a small yet responsible list in these unique fashions, ... Okay, that's the type of headlines that I write. And obviously better because I'm just doing it off the top of my head, but you see what I did there. I incorporated the open loop. I used a point of uniqueness in a sense. If we could work in a unique word, that would be cool. All those kind of techniques, yep. By the way, I do like the cartoon image, okay? I do like that. I don't like the fact that it's clickable because that makes no sense. Okay, that'll get them off the page. But I do like the cartoon image because it's different. How many people do you see put a cartoon image? It does capture your eye. And that was the first thing, by the way, that I captured, okay? My little tip for you is put a caption underneath the cartoon, if nothing more than your name. That's the only thing that I would recommend. Yep, caption, okay? In some instances, by the way, and then we're going to wrap this up, if English is not your first language, feel free to use that if you're writing products about yourself. You know, even though even though I speak broken English at best, I was still able to build a responsive email list, lickety split, because of this one factor, ... right? See what I did there? Uniqueness. We took Chris's actual story, the one tiny little part of his story that I know, and incorporated that type of thing into a headline to make it unique, right? Yep. I'll tell you what, I wrote a headline for a client once. He never ran it, okay? He never ran it, but the idea was this. I go, yes, even a guy this ugly can do blank, and then I had a big promise. But we opened the I wrote the headline with, yes, even a guy this ugly can do blank, and then I had in parentheses below that, pick and close below, right? And we had a picture of him, and it was ugly. He never ran the copy for some strange reason. I don't know why, but I would suspect it would have done very well. Okay. And it wasn't in the dating niche, although that would have been really good. That would have made sense. It actually didn't even make any sense in the context it was in. It was in a niche that had nothing to do with looks, fashion, or anything. It was just a way to get attention and make it unique. How can a guy this ugly do blank, right? How can a guy this ugly win the quilting championships 6 times in a row? Question mark, right? How can a guy this ugly have a handicap of just +2 and take money off of professionals and skin games over and over again on the golf course? Okay? Notice that. It makes no difference. Who cares how ugly a person is if they're playing golf, right? It doesn't make any difference, but it does make it unique. And I'll tell you what's so beautiful about a headline like that. People will judge you. They'll look at your picture, they'll scan down to find your picture, and they'll say, well, he's not that ugly, right? And it just so happens if right next to your picture you put some sort of additional hook to draw in them even more, yeah, that's preferable, right? It's just an example of how you can make headlines unique and why you should strive for headlines that are always unique. It's very hard to see any headline that I've ever written that is not unique. So that's my final thoughts for today about uniqueness. I'll leave you with that. Have a wonderful day. Thanks for bearing with me if you were on here live and we had a little interruption last week. We are back in the swing of things. Oh, one more thing before I go. Okay? I'm going to do a bonus session. I just decided it this morning because I'm tired of seeing sales letters that don't look like sales letters. Now this looks like a sales letter. And by the way, he worked in the pricing mechanism, which is very intelligent. See how he's doing that where this thing is raising? The only difference here is I don't know which price is the current price very easily. I see it down here, but I would actually even try to work it in to make them this a different color than these two, but make these two the same color. Okay, if that makes sense. But regardless, this looks like a sales letter, but there are a lot of critiques that I have done or things I've looked at that do not look like sales letters. I'm going to teach you how I build sales letters. It's going to be highly technical, okay? But I'm going to teach you how I do it from scratch, how I literally start with a blank text file and create a whole sales letter from scratch, the design, the layout, and how I do it in a lot of instances without any images at all, okay? It will be highly technical. I will show you HTML and CSS. I will show you all the advanced strategies and things that I do. It will probably be over your head now, but when the time is right, it'll be extremely valuable to you. Because like I just thought about it, because I was working on the new copy today for Mind State Change, because we're relaunching this. And all I did this morning was I sat down and see this letter right here and this layout and everything in it, all the designs and stuff. I wrote it from scratch and built it and put it in there with just a blank file. And I want to show you how I do that. I don't know how much of it will be applicable to you immediately, It'll be highly technical. It will not be sexy, okay? And it's not necessarily required. But I want to have it to you for a resource that you can use in the future. So it's a bonus. I'm going to call it session 7. It's going to be after the 6 sessions are over. So there you go. Look forward to that. And I will see you again, same bat time, same bat channel, next week. Have a good one.